at a quick 360. That's the name of the show. Today I got Garett, my good friend, colleague, business partner, gaming partner. Garett, how are you doing today?
Good. Excited to do this. New adventure. Great setup in the lab.
In the lab, of course. Basically today, I think our plan is to dive into a lot of different topics, building business ideas, to relationships, gaming, a little bit of current events. That's kind of our plan today. Garett, I guess just start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself.
Oh, geez, where'd I start? So I met Tommy about 8 years ago when I moved to Edmonton to go to university, take business. And from there, Tommy and I have been kind of bouncing into different things, website development, app development, marketing, social media. I spent 8.5 years in law enforcement, got into a web development, had tech startup, got launched on the app stores. Unfortunately, we didn't hit the home run, but learned a lot. It was a great experience. And then
we almost sold it too.
Yeah.
That's a topic worth discussing too.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy adventure. So just learning all that and the good negotiations and the hurdles of actually trying to get something out of like the idea concept is pretty wild, and building a team and all the people it takes to make that happen. And then from there kind of got back into law enforcement for a little bit after the app kind of went in the toilet, and then got just like recently into mortgage broking. So just got licensed, and now we're in the real estate realm.
I guess that's part of the reason why you're our first guest, is because we're both starting something new. This is a new adventure for me. You've started your new adventure of mortgage brokering, and I figured this would be the perfect way to kick it off.
Why not?
So I guess, maybe let's start with why you decided to get into doing mortgage brokering.
So crazy experience. So I was renewing my mortgage with the mortgage group, Jason Scott. He's been in the industry for like 17 years. The mortgage group's a national company, and previously before this, like anytime I renewed my mortgage, it was a terrible experience. So like getting all the documents in, just like going through it, super stressful, emails, like took forever. But the mortgage group has a tech stack called Hurricane, and you log into it, you just upload all your documents. It's super smooth. Being a tech guy, I like immediately was in love with it, and I was like, this is the coolest thing. Like, I see where their vision is going. They're super into building tech. They want to make the processes smooth for like customers and the brokers, and like just make everything awesome. So I had a great experience. Jason was super knowledgeable about the industry, like walked me through kind of future planning, how to like get, like at the time I was moving back to Edmonton into a rental that was rented out, and like kind of had a bunch of moving parts, and he just like kind of gave me a clear path, and it would just ended up being so smooth and so stress-free. And I was like, that's awesome. I was kind of, as I mentioned at the time, I was working in law enforcement, like kind of unhappy with my job, and went through some crazy stuff, big investigations and all the wild things. And so I phoned him and I was just like, hey, do you like your job? And well, number one, the fact that he was willing to take time out of his day to chat with me was pretty cool. And he spoke glowingly of his job. He was like, it's so rewarding. I get to help people. My clients are super happy. Like I save people like, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And like, very rarely you hear somebody like talk good about their job or highly about it. And so that stuck out to me. And then the kicker was, he's like, I got 2 sons. If they went out and got life experience, came back when they're 25 and they're like, hey dad, I want to get into mortgage brokering, I would totally support it. And I was like, well, if you're going to support something for your sons, like this is clearly like a good path. So the next day I registered to start taking the courses and wrote my licenses and passed the exams, and now we're here. So
now we're rocking.
Yeah.
What kind of news is there out in the mortgage industry that I guess people should know about?
Rates are coming down. Nobody has the crystal ball, but like thank God they're finally starting to come down. And even like our monoline lenders and our B lenders are getting pressure to start lowering their rates because banks are doing the same thing. So kind of saying like up until 2027, rates might continue to go down until then, which is great. But the Bank of Canada is coming out with some new stuff to get people in homes. So if you have a new build, you can get a 30-year mortgage. As of December 15th, if you're a first-time home buyer, you can get a 30-year mortgage. So by spreading your amortization out over 30 years, your payments come down, creates a whole lot of opportunity because you can make extra payments directly towards your principal instead of just paying all this interest. And
which is interesting because this is something that's not unfamiliar to the U.S. market.
No.
They've had the 30-year fixed rate mortgage forever, and it's always, to me, just seemed interesting how Canada hasn't ever done that.
Well, we had it and they took it away.
Okay. When did that
happen? I can't quote you on the exact dates, but
yeah, fact checker.
Yeah, right. The internet's gonna rip you apart. But I think it was like 15 years ago. Like we did have it, and then they took it away, and now they're like, obviously with home prices like going through the roof, it's like, for $350,000, like you're getting a home, but like it's gonna take some work or it's kind of shit or whatever. So like, the reality of the beast is you're like 400 plus to get into something.
Right, and I know recently, for every $400,000 or $500,000 that you had on your mortgage, with the rates going up, everybody's kind of paying an extra $1,000 a month.
Can be.
Like, depending on when you have to renew your mortgage and where you're at in that lifeline. It's obviously everything's been expensive. Inflation has been crazy.
Yeah.
It's nice to see Canada's getting on board.
Yeah.
But it's for first-time home buyers and new builds.
As of December 15th, it'll be first-time home buyers.
Okay. So, interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So tell me a little bit about, just the beginnings of this. I know you've done some marketing and there was something with the animal shelters that you were trying to do, and maybe just share a little bit about what's happening there.
The company I'm with is all commission based. So like you got to go out there and get business, find clients, like interact with realtors, just basically anybody like you can. And super difficult to do, right? Obviously you're not making money, so you don't have a huge budget to just pump into online ads, or like you can't put thousands of dollars into sponsoring events or having booths, or like, so you got to kind of get like crafty and creative. So one of the things that like I came up with, I thought would be really cool, was donations to animal shelters. So I wanted to do like partner with different animal shelters. I partnered with two, so Zoe's Animal Rescue and the Regina Humane Society. And what I asked them to do was put a post out on their social media and just say, hey, like if you get referred by, like if you come to Garett and say, hey, I want a mortgage, and say this animal shelter referred you, I'll donate $200 to that animal shelter, and hopefully, $200 out of my pocket first and foremost, right? So out of my commission. But I thought it was a cool way to kind of like spur some business. So like those animal shelters have really large social media accounts. So like some of them are, 60,000 across Alberta. They're like 250K. So I was like, cool. Like I can give them a value add. Like I can bring more money into your organization, because obviously animal shelters need. It's expensive to take care of all the animals, and since COVID.
Yeah, it's funny how COVID, there were no animals left to be had, but now it's like, because I follow a few different ones on Facebook, and it's like every single animal shelter is like, we're at capacity, please, someone, which is
sad. It's crazy.
Sad, yeah.
So like I see now that they have like an opportunity and a need for more donation, right? I need more eyes. So I was like, this is a great like opportunity to help you guys out, to get me in front of people, so hopefully I can get more referrals, and then thanking you for doing that, I'll take $200 out of my commission, which comes from the bank, by the way. It doesn't come from the client. And I'll donate to your shelter and hopefully create this ecosystem where we can give back.
That's the one thing about choosing your road versus the real estate broker road, where it's, there's lots of different times in someone's financial life that they could go for refinancing their mortgage.
Well, I mean, maybe you got a credit card at 20% or a line of credit at 12.5%, and you can pay it off, or clear up some debt, put yourself in a better position. And so that was the plan I put out, and that's what we're working on right now.
I like that. The one thing I noticed is just, obviously, I think a network is the key to success in this industry, right? Where it's like, I know some people who had very successful professional lives, and then one day they decide to get into real estate, and it's like your network is already established. So you're just managing the movement of your friends is essentially it. So I guess as someone new to the industry, trying to grow that book of business, like you're doing different things with different organizations to try and Zoe's Regina Animal Shelter, do some good there. But like what's going to be the key to trying to just build that network? Like, is it some sort of Rotary group, a BNI? I'm sure BNI is filled with a lot of mortgage people, but it's a tricky one to figure out. I know buying a house is something that's on my future, so you at least have one customer coming down in the road. I don't know exactly when and where, but like You heard it here first. My mortgage broker will be Garett. I guess, yeah, just talking about business, we've discussed a little bit before this, just the amount of information that's out there and being overwhelmed. I know, especially with like AI and all this other stuff that's coming out. You were even talking about just the system you guys use to quote. How do you figure out what information you should be paying attention to and trying to do something with that versus getting consumed by how much you don't know?
Well, I think too, like depending on what realm you're in, like I think like we should dive into like health after, but like
Okay.
Like the health information realm, but like I think for like business, there's a lot of good resources on the internet, but like you kind of get this information overload and then you just get stagnant, like you don't know where to move or what to do or whatever. And I've just jumping into mortgages, I found that too, right? Like so when I wanted to kind of get going and try and build my social media accounts, I'm like looking at what other people are doing on the internet, like in my niche, right? And some of their videos, I'm like, that makes no sense. I don't even understand what you're doing. So like people get sucked into this realm where they just think everybody who's on the internet's an expert. And it's like
the talking face paradox, where it's like anyone sitting in front of a camera talking, it's like, oh, this must be an expert.
Not so
Not
true.
always.
Not so true, right? So pretty crazy like that way. And you know, I was even like listening to somebody trying to explain a way to like skirt taxes in their mortgage and stuff like that and doing all this like crazy stuff. I'm like, that won't work. Like that's not true. Like you're gonna get people in trouble. Like do not do that. So
they always say a little bit of information can be very dangerous.
Totally. And then, you know, people take in like maybe 10% of that information and now they're an expert, right?
Totally.
And I think at the end of the day, like you know, you kind of got to go seek out experts in certain spaces and like actually like people that have like done it and understand it and they're in it all the time, right? And like lean into them a little bit, like get off the internet a little bit and like lean into that like in person kind
Which,
of.
like, I'm all for the internet still. Like, I think today versus 15, 20 years ago, when we were just growing and developing, like, the difficulty in which it was to find someone that was an expert that could create content in a way that, like, actually provides value versus, like, the TikTok generation where it's like, in 30 seconds, someone's going to teach you something pretty in-depthly. And, like, oh, okay, like, I now know a lot more about this certain subject. Like I follow like Canadian tax people and like the way they break things down with their little illustrations and drawings. I'm like, okay, like I actually feel like I learned something, but at the same time, you can't just take a little clip and base everything off that, but it can be a good starting point for a conversation with someone that knows a lot more.
Right? And go back it up. Like take that information, soak it in. Like I agree with you. Like it's amazing like how fast you can learn stuff, but like validate it, right? Like don't before that becomes your gospel, like make sure it's factual and true and right.
It's tricky because even with algorithms reinforcing your bias of whatever information, depending on where you are, you'll just continually see more that reinforces that belief when it's like maybe there's a whole other side to this that we're not seeing right 100%. Now. So it is tricky where just like news, everything, which kind of what we're trying to do here with the 360 is provide a few different angles for people to draw their own conclusions. Right. Whereas a lot of things are just reinforcing one belief, even like news and all these other platforms. It's like you take Fox, they have a specific agenda they're trying to go at. You take MSNBC and CNN, and it's like they have a very specific agenda where like the news and everything used to be like we need to bring one person from both sides. And I think you kind of mentioned that about what we should do on here is like bring people together that have opposing opinions, kind of like Lex Friedman, and say, hey, like let's hash it out because we live in a relative world. Like there's obviously some universal like physics and the way of the universe that I think is hard to get around, like human psychology, behavior, these sorts of things. But at the same time, we all have our own relative beliefs that influence every decision that we're making, whether that's I don't want to buy a house because I don't want to own it, right? And like so then you have a whole group of people that just rent because there are a lot of benefits to renting, right?
Don't have to worry about the wash machine breaking and
all these things, and I want to be out of here. I'm gonna just leave, right?
The freedom of
I'm going to move to New York, or
Yeah.
I'm going to move to Bali, or
Yeah.
whatever, which is kind of in my life is
Yeah.
like, I like renting. I know I've missed out on some capital gains of getting in the market at the right time, and there's a cost trade-off, but
Yeah.
it's analyzing it where it's like, okay, who are you? Where are you at in your life? And depending on that, this information might be important to you.
Yeah. And you gotta get comfortable with that too. And like whatever information you decide is important to you, like doesn't need to be pushed on anybody else. Or like you know, like I think like we had chatted before about like the skincare industry and like, you know, kind of how that gets a little bit wild. So like, you know, I'll give you an example. Like I went paddleboarding the other day with my fiance and my sister, and they're like so pro sunscreen. And you got to put sunscreen on, and this is blah blah blah. And because like they love skincare, so their social media is constant skincare stuff, and this is the best. It's from Korea, blah 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 blah. And that's great. Like that's your. But like,
does it have that bleaching cream in it too?
Maybe, I don't know, right? But like,
the hard thing about buying any sort of cream in Asia,
you know,
it's all bleaching agent. I'm kind of a hippie.
Yeah,
that's me. I'm like, I don't really trust anything, because at one point doctors were recommending Lucky Strike to calm you down and do that. So not to say that you shouldn't trust your medical advice when you need it, but I think we're a little crazy with like,
you gotta get like kind of what you're comfortable with, right? So like back to like the sunscreen stuff, like they're really pro wearing it, and I'm really pro not, just because I don't like putting things on my skin.
This temple.
Yeah, right? Because when I was young, I had really bad acne, and I would put cream on, and then my pimples would get worse.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, you're telling me this, but I'm getting this result. Oh, well, you got to use it longer. You got to use this, or you got to add this, and you got to keep. And then all of a sudden, you're just like making this giant concoction. And the one thing that just helped was just like stop worrying about it.
Totally.
And so with me now, like with the sunscreen, I'm like, I'm not going to wear it, but I'm also not going to sit in the sun for 15 hours a day, right? So kind of like,
manage
that's where my peace is. And I think like peace is in like peace of mind, right? And I think not stressing about this stuff is like, the stress is way worse on your body, where if I don't do this and I don't do that and I don't do this, then it's like, well, it doesn't matter what you do at this point. You got yourself so stressed out that your body is fighting itself. So
yeah, I feel like stress will kill you faster than a lot of things.
So fast.
You know?
Yeah.
It's hard not to. It's just, I don't know. When it comes to sunscreens and doing those things, I'm more or less like you, where I'll just spend 30 minutes in the sun.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to move to the shade.
Yeah.
Right? Like a little bit.
Get some vitamin D.
I don't know. Yeah. Maybe we need to find an expert on sunscreen to have a real conversation. I know someone that we could have this. They're unfortunately not here right now. But yeah, does it even allow you to absorb the vitamin D the same way that your body naturally should? I know Rick Rubin, the famous music producer, his
interesting guy.
A very interesting guy, like the king of hippies, I guess, in a weird way, but also has worked with every major musician across the board, because he's got good taste, is what he says he does specifically. But his morning ritual is to walk outside in the morning and spend about 5 to 10 minutes just bare naked, taking in the sun. And it's like, I think I'd be down with that too if I had
the space,
a place to do it. My current living situation is
you end up in jail,
I'd end up in jail for sure. So I don't know. I'm with you. Little less is probably more, where I think we just definitely live in a society where it's, oh, you can take a pill for that, or hey, just do this, when it's like,
just go outside.
Maybe just relax about it a little bit. And like, if you do have a consistent problem where maybe you go outside and every time the sun hits you, you start to break out in blisters, like, you've got something you need to deal with.
Totally.
But I don't think it's.
But listen to you and like your body and your ecosystem, instead of the internet so much, right? Like kind of just tap into that.
It's easy to get lost in it too, because it's like, you just get sucked in a wormhole. And then again, if you spend 10 to 15 minutes watching skincare routine videos, like, the algorithm is going to know.
Yeah.
So you're going to keep getting more and more and more. And then it's like, oh crap, like all of a sudden I'm lost in the sauce of this. One question I'd like to dip back into with AI and just that, like, where do you think this is going to influence the mortgage real estate industry when it comes to like qualifying people, getting the best rates.
Mm-hmm.
Like I definitely think just the ability to analyze all these crazy data points that like you wouldn't even notice, right? Like I get a little scared because it's like human social score kind of thing. Is like, is that the world we're headed to with this, where like your banks and everyone are monitoring each transaction, trying to understand who the heck you are as a person, what are you doing, like your phone GPS, like it's kind of spooky to me that like where we're headed.
Yeah, I mean, like we've done like a certain like parts of like kind of gone down that realm for years with like credit scores.
Yeah.
Right, essentially. But you know, it's definitely like making its way. Like I've noticed it already, like in good ways, like it's helping, right? So it's helping us like with TMG, like we have like 100 lenders across Canada, right? So we have like, we can basically work with anybody, but like that's a ton of information, right? Like each lender has their own categories and what they like and all this different stuff. So now we can plug things into computer systems and it just like gives us the best options right away, right? So instead of spending 5, 6, 7 hours like reading through documents and trying to like curate and I'd be like, okay, I think this lender's going to really like this person, this borrower, and stuff like that. It's kind of helping us make that match right away, which is great for the client because, you know, our approval rates are going up. We're able to help people in different situations. Like it's, you know, it's not like back in like 1950 where you've got to like go down to the banker and hopefully you kind of know them and hopefully you kind of like, you know, and
like, oh, we've never met you before. We don't actually do business with people we haven't met before.
Sure. And you're not like the perfect candidate or whatever, right? Like we can find you a market. And so it's actually like really helping out people that, and it makes the whole process even faster, right? Which is great. You know, there's certain levels of like privacy and stuff, like, you know, with down payments and stuff, like you have to prove like 90-day history just for like money laundering and stuff like that. But like, you know, they're not really going to go back. Like you can be a person, right? Like if you have like 1,000 withdrawals from the casino and you're kind of, you know, sitting at that like $300 in your account, it's like, well, it's maybe not a good risk, but like, you know that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think there's like I don't think we're gonna go like social score. Like, I mean, we're Canada, right? Like we're not a communist country. I don't think. Well, I mean, debatable, but like,
that's totally up for debate here. I do find it interesting. Yeah, I'm a Canadian and an American, and it is interesting how many people in Canada work for the government.
Well, it's our biggest industry.
And I'm like, like
we don't.
The American within me is like, government should definitely not be the largest industry.
No.
It's starting to swing back the other way. Like I think people are realizing that like when you have people out there that are actively working to sabotage and like take advantage of a system, you realize like, okay, like it's not fair, right? Like this is there is no fairness in this equation right now. So how do we create a set of rules that allows it to at least be fairer? And it's not usually, hey, we need more. It's like, hey, like maybe you just need to navigate life with open eyes, you know? Like and maybe approach people and not necessarily blindly believe that this is the best for you, and kind of ask those questions that help you establish like, okay, like there's going to be risk probably here. Is it worth it, right? And I think that's the best way to build a stronger society, rather than people who are like, I can't think for myself. I'm going to let someone else decide. And that person has totally different motivations and agendas than what you're trying to do, which is where I'm like a little nervous when the biggest industry is government. But we can do that one later too. I don't want to get completely kicked off the internet in our first episode.
I agree.
We can move into maybe a different topic. And I know we were thinking a little bit about relationships, managing them, just life and where we're at. I know you had a father that passed away, and maybe I guess like I still have my parents, so I'm sorry to hear that that's something that you've had to tackle in recent months. But maybe you can share what that journey has been like.
Yeah, I lost my father coming up on the 1 year, October 10th last year, and he was my rock for sure. Like he was so wise, and he was a person you'd call with questions, and he just like had this like beautiful view on life where he would just dumb things down and give you like kind of just let you really good at letting you walk through your thoughts and your emotions, and then you would just like arrive at the what you knew was best. And he did it in such a like beautiful, graceful way, and it was so like honest and
That does give me chills, because that is like, I think that's a very important thing in teaching and learning, is allowing people to arrive at the conclusion,
yeah.
right? I think it means more than
Because then
having that coach that's yelling at you to do
Yeah.
something, and it's like you're not understanding it, rather than someone that can kind of guide you through it so that you arrive at the conclusion yourself. And then I think that always has a little more impact.
Well, it's the authentic like decision you want to make, right? Like it helps you kind of align with like your authentic self and what you want to do. And so he was really good at that. And then you kind of have this aha moment, and he'd be like, "Well, you know what to do, bud." And you're like, "Oh yeah," like so. Yeah, he was the best at that, and losing him was incredibly difficult and just an absolute shock, and totally like uprooted my world, and you know, but continued ever since that day, continued to teach me like really powerful, beautiful lessons. Like, and one of the ones is just like life is so fragile, and you know, and not in a scary way, but in like a really, you got to do what you want to do way. Like you don't, tomorrow is not a promise, and if you don't do what you want to do today, you're not going to set the ground roots and the foundation for where you want to be in the future. And you know, fear holds people back, a bunch of other, you know, different things hold people back. But when somebody like that passes in your life, that kind of all disappears, because that loss supersedes everything, right? Your world is different now. It's changed forever. There's no like
going back.
There's no going
reset button on that.
No, like you know, I would give anything in this world to do that, and just saying that, I'd give anything in this world to do that. It's like, now that's my mantra, right? Like if I want to go do this, you give anything in the world to go do that, because tomorrow is not going to be that guarantee. And yeah, his passing has kind of given me like this like weird confidence and strength, and you know, you gotta hit the bottom to come back up and build, and it definitely did that. And it, you know, it's like kind of sober second thought, like it really makes you think about
how fragile life truly is,
and what the hell am I doing?
Totally.
Like why am I here? What's
my purpose?
What's the end game? What's the 20 years look like? What's 15 years look like?
Totally.
Like how do we...
He had a very insightful kind of one-liner of, it's not about being the girl at 2 a.m. It's about being the girl at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
So take me behind what your thoughts are on that statement.
So I think that like that goes for relationships, business, like timing is super important. Like the people in your life need to show up at the right time, right? And like, you know, when I was younger, like the girl at 2 a.m. was a little bit, you know, at times I was like, all right, that's, you know, but
that works for me.
That works for me. But as
I work for you at that time.
Maybe, yeah.
I hope so.
And but like later on in life, as your like values and stuff change, and you need to like get things done and be productive and build through life, like the time is more important. Like it's like you know, the relationship needs to be at 2 p.m. now. I don't want you at 2 a.m. I want you at 2 p.m. Right? I need you to be of value to me at that time, so that like we can communicate and problem solve and be a team, and like, you know, and that the time of building the tribe is really important, right? Like, you know, if you've got the buddy that phones you at 7 o'clock every day, and it's like, hey, let's go out, and then, you know, we go out all night and stay out and don't do anything. It's like, well, maybe that's not the right,
totally,
you know, it's not the right time. That's the 2 a.m., not the 2 p.m. And
on the podcast that will not be named, one of the business partners there would text me at 3 o'clock in the morning asking for money.
Yeah, not what you want to be happening, right?
That's why we're doing this now instead of doing that, because I realized, I'm like, this, like if this thing grows into something really successful, I'm gonna have someone that's dipping into the piggy bank at 3 o'clock in the morning, and like what kind of stealing. The 15, 20 years down the road now, like let's think about that. Is like, where does this lead?
Yeah.
Probably nowhere that I want to be involved in. Is like, people will show you who they are.
Totally.
If you listen.
Totally.
And it's up to you to decide what you're going to do about it. But
where I got that, I came up with that analogy that the 2 p.m. not 2 a.m. is I had an ex, and really had a soft spot for her, right? And went through all kinds of BS, and the breaking point was, you know, like the 2 a.m. call, right? And I was like, no, like,
Yeah.
I love you. I want to be with you at 2 p.m., not 2 a.m., right?
Yeah.
And so that, like, it's funny. I actually came up with that after Dad's death too, right? Just kind of reevaluating life and relationships and people. And that was an analogy that I came up with. It was the 2 p.m., not 2 a.m.
Yeah, it's not exactly specific to being the girl. It's anyone, just
Business life. It's like, is that person going to show up to you at the time you need them, right? Not when it's convenient for them, not when, you know, like when, and vice versa. Like, you also have to bring that value to other people at the right time.
totally. This is a good segue into gaming. Like, I want to talk to you a little bit about gaming because I think it goes well with relationships, where I see a lot of things on Reddit, Instagram, like some threads where it's like, if you're over 30 and playing video games, like, what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
And I highly disagree with it. Like, obviously, I think everything in life is about balance, discipline, and knowing when is too far. Like, unless we're playing video games all day long and like neglecting life, like, I think, okay, like, obviously we've gone into like, this is a dangerous thing for your well-being and your future.
Productivity's down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as far as, I think, reasonably wholesome, like, I don't know if wholesome is necessarily the word, but like I know normally we hop on for an hour, usually like 10:30 to 11:30 or 11 to 12, like a couple nights a week, and it's a nice way to connect with the boys. I also think gaming really helps people develop communication skills.
Big time.
Where it's like, hey, how do you let people know what's happening, where it's happening, and the situations around that. I think as far as other hobbies that people could have, like, it's not like we're like, hey, let's meet up at the bar every night and like spend $200 on alcohol. It's maybe occasionally you buy some V-Bucks, but I think the other thing I really like, especially around Fortnite, is just the connection I think it gives people from our generation to the Gen Z, like, and beyond, right? Like, this is a major piece of their culture.
Totally.
I feel like I have nieces and nephews from like 3 all the way up to 25. And playing Fortnite has created a connection with every one of them, like in a certain way, because they know the gritty, they know the dances, like everybody at school.
Pro sports, it's
everywhere.
Everywhere.
But I think people need to like take it easy on people who do play video games.
It strengthened our relationship for like problem solving. Hey, we need to do this, okay? And like just trusting and believing and going and like and kind of having that, like, you know, that beautiful synergy. And the one thing that gets lost for people, like especially like, you know, over 25, over 30 that play the games, is like, guys don't really communicate or have that opportunity to communicate, but it's like, it's a really like nice spot to do it. Like my buddy, I'm not gonna, you know, drop names here, but he also lost his dad a couple years ago during COVID, and we used to like, you know, we play NHL and we talk, and he would just vent, and I would just listen, and we would just chat, and it was like, it was a safe space for him, that he was comfortable to like say the things that maybe he didn't want to say to like coworkers, or maybe didn't want to say to family, or maybe didn't want to say to like, you know, I also wasn't directly in front of him, so maybe he felt a little bit like safer to say some things that were a little bit more vulnerable, and like,
totally,
you know,
he's in his own comfortable space at home.
For sure. And like, there's not somebody like, tell me more, or, you know, or like judging or whatever, right? And so I think it's really good for that. Like, we have lots of like late night chats too, where we vent about stuff. And the other crazy thing is it actually brings people together. Like, did I tell you the story about my buddy's bachelor party? Okay, so
well, you did tell me, but we need to tell.
Yeah, okay. So this is like many, many years ago. So like I've played video games like for years, and probably about like 5 years ago, my buddy was getting married, and we were gaming one night, and this is before his bachelor party and stuff, like a couple of years probably before. And we needed to like fill a party. We needed another person to come in, so we just like a random fill. We ended up meeting this guy named Austin from Texas. Gamed with him. We added him. Became his buddy. We started chatting online. You know, it became a thing where we were playing with him regularly. Then we met one of his buddies, and then, you know, we kind of like made this like group of friends from Texas. So bachelor party time comes, and and this, our friend group in Canada, like extended from a buddy in university, and then his buddy, and then all of a sudden we have this like kind of this web across Canada, right?
Totally.
Like, and it goes from Manitoba to BC, and now we're all kind of like doing this thing, right? And now we've got these boys from Texas that are in this as well. So bachelor party comes, the boys from Texas, we've never met them in person, probably played like, you know, had
how many hours have you spent
we know what they do
together?
for work, we know what their relationship's like, we know what the hobbies, like these are people that we like know well, right? Like we're, you know better than our neighbor, right? Essentially, probably, or whatever.
Probably better.
Exactly. And met in Vegas for the first time, had an absolute blast. Like I've met people, my buddy Deeker from Manitoba, played games with him. Met him after playing probably for 3.5 years together in person, and it was like he was my best friend.
Totally.
Like because I knew his family's names, I knew what he were, you know,
Yeah.
I know everything.
The only thing missing was just
a
hug.
And that's the thing, right? As soon as you say, dude, what's up? Like,
Yeah.
you know, and you just have that. So I think that's it's created a new dynamic for like relationships and interaction. And
Normally this is an argument where like girls are hating on the dudes
Yeah.
for playing video games.
oh, I get it all the time from my fiance.
Yeah, there are. Luckily, Steph's pretty good with me about my gaming because
Yeah.
she's kind of into playing Mario Kart on her phone.
Nice.
So she at least gets it, right? Like,
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice to just detach from like all the crazy serious things that we think about on a daily basis. Like, I got to move to Powell River. I'm trying to build this business. I got a client calling me about this XYZ that there's just not happening for them, and I got to figure out how to get them to understand.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where this fits in your life, right? Like all these things, like
Got to make this phone call tomorrow. I don't want to make it. Got to do. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
I appreciate just having that minute to
Just unwind.
disconnect from it for
Yeah.
a few minutes, even though it's like I play video games with pretty much everyone I work with anyway. So it like, offers that nice informal area where like if you want to talk about something that's important, you can. But at the same time, let's just run around, do some dances, try and get a victory royale.
Yeah.
I think we're getting pretty close to the end of this one here. I'm
Crazy.
hoping everything is still working over there on the other end of this. I kind of want to end this with like a current events thing.
Okay.
You know, like what's happening in the world right now that you think people should be paying attention to or you're paying attention to?
Do you want like just like an oddball topic or
anything you want to talk about, really? Like I know you kind of mentioned to me this whole Zionics thing.
It's hilarious.
The nicotine without tobacco kind of situation, which is interesting to me. I'll let you start with this one, and then I'll chime in.
Okay, so like obviously Zionics, like Zins, like became like a huge thing. I'm a huge supporter. I have one in my mouth right now. Love them.
I like that.
But I just think like how it panned out in Canada was like so funny because you know, these things started getting popularity, like people are importing all these Zins, like girls are using them, like everyone, you know, everyone's like using them. So the government of Canada, like same thing they did with weed, they're like, oh, well, we don't have any industry that makes money. We don't produce anything, we don't sell anything, we don't export, like, you know, we kind of, well, here's our opportunity to get in, get some more tax dollars and whatever. So, you know, they come out with these Zionics and then they brand them as like a, you know, kind of like the Nicorette gum or something. Like it's an alternative to quit, and this is like it's going to make people better and blah blah blah. It's like, you know, so they put them out in the gas stations, and then the health minister comes out and goes after these things are like raging in popularity. Like kids that were vaping in high schools are just doing Zionics all day, and like, you know, it's we got rid of the flavored cigars because it was getting people on these. So now you've got rid of the like. You gotta hide your smoking. You can just do it all the time.
Yeah,
just in all the time. And then they're like, oh my god, like kids are even getting like, you know, this is increasing. And then the health minister comes out and goes, oh my goodness, I got duped. I'm like, how did you get duped? This is going on all over the world. Like Zins are from Sweden and all. Like this is. What do you mean you got duped? You got a huge paycheck from big tobacco, and now you're retired, right? Like you didn't get duped at all. Like.
I obviously am not like a scientist in the sense of like nutrition and knowing what chemicals do in your body, but like I feel like it is a step in the right direction from like chewing tobacco, right? Or no?
Wow, it's such a like
different.
It's such a catch-22. Like, I agree, right? Less chemical, maybe. I
Like,
don't know. I think,
I feel
and
like
like
nicotine
perception-wise,
is a pretty powerful thing for a lot of people. That it's like, if there is a way to get it into you without like necessarily having all the millions of other things that are in there,
true.
I'm for that.
But the issue now is like the nicotine consumption is so high.
Yeah,
Like,
because it calms people down. Remember, like
But-
those
but I-
doctors weren't wrong back in the day.
but I'm pumping it into my body all day, every
Yeah,
day,
you're
right? And
fueled.
like the
Nicotine plus caffeine
crazy.
equals protein. That's what this one guy who, he used to be a golf caddy for Abraham Answer told us on a podcast, and he said, "Yeah, my philosophy on life is nicotine plus caffeine equals protein." I was like, I don't know if that's exactly true, but like I understand why you like those two, right? Like they're powerful things in the old
But the pouches now, like they're crazy. Like some of them are coming out with like 24 milligrams or gram or whatever.
Just burn a hole right through your lip.
I'm like, what? Like what? That's insane. Like the actual consumption. Like I don't know if anyone like has ever like smoked a cigarette, but like you can really only smoke so many cigarettes a day, right? At some point, you're like, it's too much, right? Like
yeah.
But you know, like
Totally,
like for like
totally.
this, like to put something in your lip and then have it in like all day, like your nicotine consumption is like up like 300-400% now.
I don't know. It's tricky when it gets into like anyone below like 25, I guess, because they don't have a prefrontal cortex and can't understand like where these things could be troublesome in life. And like it doesn't even matter. Like there's obviously people well over 25 doing horrible things for themselves.
For sure.
But it's just, when you get like 16, 17, 18-year-olds, like they shouldn't even be doing this to begin with because it's illegal.
Younger.
And they're,
You'd be like 14 and have a dip in all day and like
That's
your
crazy.
parents have no idea.
That's crazy.
Wild.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not for that.
I know, it's like
So, yeah.
wild world. But
I'm also for like people kind of having some level of freedom to
Yeah.
choose what they want to do, right? Like, I don't think.
you're not that age. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, obviously, but like, how are they getting it? Because they shouldn't be walking into a convenience store and being able to purchase it at 14, right? Like, they're obviously doing like fake IDs and.
Well, you buy it online.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like you can
Just check a box saying I'm over 18.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess like that's a pretty good topic to end on.
Let's do it.
It's something to wrap our minds around. Garett, it's awesome for you to be here. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you guys all found something insightful from here. We will. Yeah, you can come in, I guess. Our sidekick that was supposed to be here wasn't here.
I phoned you like 8 times.
Get down right here.
What do you mean twice?
Actually, over here.
In the middle.
Yeah.
Bad boy.
My bad.
Introduce yourself.
2 p.m., not 2 a.m.
Yeah, give me the mic. I'm Cam. I'm the nephew.
Sick. It's good to see you.
All right. Take care, and we'll see you guys next time.